This is the Debit Regulations Resource Center, brought to you by Pulse. I'm Steve Sievert with Pulse Marketing and Communications, and joining me today is Tony Hayes, partner at Oliver Wyman. Today we'll discuss additional results from the 2012 Debit Issuer Study, which is commissioned annually by Pulse and conducted by Oliver Wyman. Tony, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
What were some of the most significant findings from this study regarding growth in the debit market?
Well, I think in the previous study, we asked issuers what their expectations were for growth in 2011. And what we found is the average projection was for 7% transaction growth in both PIN and in signature. I think many cases, FIs had tempered their expectations, given the economy was weak, given all the regulations that the issuer was dealing with, be it Durbin, be it Reg E, and the overall banking environment. And yet, as we look back now and look at how 2011 played out, it certainly was much stronger than we or the issuers had anticipated. PIN transactions grew by 9%, and signature debit transactions grew by 11%. Certainly a very strong performance. Let me put those numbers in perspective. If we take the average active debit card holder now, they're doing 18.3 purchases per month. Debit is now used far more frequently by active users than any credit card is. So I think it just goes to show how resilient debit is and how well the product aligns with what consumers' needs are in today's environment.
The study also took a look at emerging technologies. You can't talk about payments in today's environment without talking about mobile payments, without talking about EMV, and issuers do forecast robust debit growth going forward. Is some of that growth going to be driven by some of these new technologies? Clearly EMV is a little bit of a ways off, but what about mobile? Is that going to be a catalyst for future growth?
Well, when we talk about mobile, there's certainly lots of interest, but we need to be very clear what we mean when we say mobile. In terms of mobile banking, 86% of the FIs in the study now offer mobile banking to their customers, and all of the remainder plan to do so in the next year or so. But in terms of mobile payments, clearly there are different shapes and flavors of mobile payments, but the way we chose to define it in the study was the ability to use your mobile phone to make a purchase at the point of sale. And there's considerable interest amongst the FIs to pilot this kind of technology. And yet what was surprising to us, when we spoke with the FIs who've actually tried this, their interest wanes considerably. They say that there's not a strong business case for trying to migrate from a plastic card towards a mobile phone or a mobile wallet. And they also point to the fact that there's also not a strong consumer case for them to adopt this. The card that you or I have today works very well. And so unless a phone can offer a better than proposition for driving mobile payments adoption, it may struggle to get traction. And so when we asked issuers what their forecasts were for adoption of mobile payments, most had very modest expectations for how much of their debit activity might move to mobile, even over the next 5 years. So despite all the interest and all the interest in the hype in the marketplace, it seems as though mobile is going to stay very much on the sidelines in the near term.
But Tony, when it comes to mobile payments, aren't those key to ensuring continued customer loyalty, especially with the younger generation?
No, that's right, and I think that sometimes we have the tendency to conflate, mobile and mobile payments and mobile loyalty, when these actually could be separate but distinct propositions. So you can certainly use the mobile phone to drive loyalty, to have offers, to better engage with customers. And that can be separate and distinct from the actual payment mechanism itself, which I think for the foreseeable future will continue to go over traditional payment networks. Let me also go back, though, to EMV, because that was the second area that we heard a lot of discussion and a lot of feedback from the issuers around, is EMV. And there was an interesting dichotomy. On the one hand, every issuer we spoke to is familiar with the network rules or the new mandates around EMV and the date for the rule change in terms of the shift in liability. And yet, 71% of all the FIs said they have no plans to issue EMV-based debit cards. What we heard is the benefits of doing EMV are very uncertain. It's unclear whether the dates will hold. It's unclear whether the merchants are going to roll out EMV-based terminals. It's unclear whether there will be the reduction of fraud that people are claiming. And yet what is clear is the cost of moving to chip-based cards is certain. So faced with certain costs and uncertain benefits, the vast majority of issuers say we should take a wait-and-see approach to this.
So it sounds like EMV definitely falls into the challenges category, but what about opportunities? What should issuers be doing to grow their debit programs going forward?
Right. Well, I think when we talk about opportunities, we do need to divide the world up into FIs with more than $10 billion in assets and those with less. For those that are exempt from the interchange regulation, I think there are lots of opportunities. And what we heard is a continued strong focus on growth, driving better penetration, activation, and usage, investing in marketing programs and rewards programs, and certainly the program remains very vibrant. It's night and day once you cross the $10 billion mark. The opportunities seem much more dim, and instead we see a lot more focus around things like expense reduction and cost mitigation. You can real very sharp focus on fraud prevention to try and reduce losses. So where the issuers are focused really bifurcates based upon the asset size of the issuer.
Tony, thanks for joining us today and sharing additional details from the Debit Issuer Study. And check back often for additional updates and insights right here on the Pulse Debit Regulations Resource Center. You can also follow the Pulse on Debit blog for the latest trends and developments in the payments industry. You can find it on the homepage of the Pulse website at pulsenetwork.com. Until next time, I'm Steve Sievert.